Foster or Moore, Keaton or Bale, Williams or Smith? The discussion on who played a character better has always been hotly debated. Tune in this week and find out what we think.
This is I Pierce the Toast. I'm Sean.
And I'm AJ. Let's make some toast.
Welcome back to I Pierce the Toast.
Hey, we're back.
We are. It's in
Goodness.
podcast years. I think we've been gone for like 2 decades.
It's been some time for sure.
It has. Let's catch our toasticles up. We had Mother's Day.
Yes,
I took a trip.
you did in your favorite rocket ship.
Gonna take a trip in my rocket ship. And AJ's Beyonce is now a college graduate.
Yes, she is a college grad, and I am so proud of her.
I am proud of her for being a college grad while putting up with AJ. I think that shows incredible resolve.
Hey, I put up with her. There's a difference, okay? There's a major difference, all right?
She's gonna listen to this, and she's gonna get us both.
Yeah, 100%.
We're both gonna be in trouble.
Also, she's actually going to have a present for us soon. Just because we're kind of shaking things up, and one of the things she's become very interested in is art recently.
Oh, all right.
She is going to help us redesign our logo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. So we're gonna come into season. We're gonna come into the mid of season 2
With a new logo.
with we're going to retire our dear toast friends and embrace some new toast friends.
Yeah, they're going to be new toast friends. It's
New
going to
toast
be
friends.
it's going to be a very similar logo, but it's just going to be a little different. You know, just change some things up.
I like it. Well, AJ, do we have any news to discuss? I haven't been keeping up with shit.
In August, there is a movie coming out, and I don't know if you know that on August 23rd, the new Crow movie is coming out.
Oh, I'm well aware. So I did contact a dear friend of mine from high school, and I let her know that we have a standing date for the Crow release.
Ooh,
Because we were both big fans of both the film and Brandon Lee in general. So yeah, no, I'm definitely looking forward to this, and I hope they don't fuck it up.
Yeah.
I think they are going to fuck it up because they seem to do that with every continuing iteration of the Crow. Even though I actually liked the Vincent, what the hell's his name, from the second movie.
I actually have not watched the second or third. I've seen like bits of it, but I have not watched all of them through.
I don't know. I actually kind of dug it. He was
It's like the City of Angels or whatever.
Yeah, so I think the second one was City of Angels. The third one was something Prayer, I think is what it was. I don't remember them all off the top of my head. but
Okay.
I just know that in the second one, you got Iggy Pop acting all kinds of fucking weird.
Okay.
And that's saying something for
I
Iggy
mean,
Pop.
Iggy Pop is just weird as shit in general.
It's just kind of his MO anyway.
I guess the other news before we do move into it, because it's kind of big out there. Sean, have you seen Ghostbusters 2?
Yeah, AJ, I think I have.
Yeah. Well, we've already kind of had this conversation, so we're just kind of doing this for you again, because, this is what happens on podcasts. People pretend that they haven't talked about something before, and we totally fucking have. So, King Charles recently had his portrait.
Oh, God, this.
He recently had his portrait unveiled. And the whole entire world quickly realized that there was a very, very big similarity between this and a certain painting in Ghostbusters 2. And they have been showing some crazy shit. One of my favorite things is like there's the artist in the Ghostbusters movie that is painting. The actual painting, his name is Janish. It's super fucking hilarious because it shows him painting King Charles on there too. It's just hilarious to me.
AJ sent me this meme, and I didn't get it at first because I'm like, okay, why did somebody take King Charles's portrait and make it so fucking weird looking? He's like, no, dude, that's what it actually looks like. I was like, what? Who fucking did this?
And they think it's great too. That's the thing that's crazy to me.
Like how? How could you look like? And then you look at Queen Elizabeth, right?
Yeah, Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah, Queen Elizabeth's, and it's like it's perfectly normal looking. Did you just Kraken without saying Kraken?
I was waiting for you to get done, and then I was going to say post Kraken,
Ah,
post mature Kraken.
post,
I guess.
wise learned man,
Post mature Kraken.
post mature Kraken. But yeah, I mean, I looked at Elizabeth's, and it was fine. It was perfectly normal. And then I look at this, I'm like, why are we hiring postmodernists to do fucking like royal portraits? What is this shit?
I'm so excited for this because it's really showing that some people just don't understand that their version of art is not always going to come across the way that they fucking think.
Oh yeah,
Like,
totally. Death of the artist. Like when that artist finished, whatever he had in mind, like no, it's Vigo the Carpathian now.
it's like, and it sucks because, you know, King Charles probably thought, "Oh, this is actually really good." But there's actually this funny video where he's unveiling his own, because he has to pull like a string and it like brings the little banner or whatever it is down on it, and he looks back and he freaks out for a second, and everyone's like, "Oh, even he was all scared of his own portrait." It's fucking great.
So when he unveiled it, did it say, "I, Charles, and now Ray will rule the world"?
I fucking wish.
Fucking Christ Almighty!
Bring me a child.
So that I may live again. I could totally see Charles saying that shit too. Like I could just see him in there with like his posh British accent, like "Bring me a child, so that I may live again." And bring me more strawberries.
Why strawberries?
I don't fucking know.
Is it because it's red?
It wasn't, but fuck it. Yeah, let's say that was on purpose. Fuck it.
So what I was saying before though is that this episode right here is kind of geared towards our first conversation. We were talking about The Crow. There has been a slew of remakes stretching back from, I guess, since movies were made. They've always been remaking movies over and over and over and over again. And one of the things that you and I have debated multiple different times, and it's just kind of happened through all cinephiles that I know, is who plays a certain role better. And I thought it would be kind of fun, try to get back into the swing of things of just talking about who did certain roles better. We have a couple of different characters that I find, or that I have found to be like some really memorable characters that I've kind of chosen that we can talk about. The first one that I want to talk about is Clarice Starling. And we're going to do this in a fun way. We're only going to have 2 actors. So it doesn't matter how many people have played this role. I'm only choosing 2. We can always come back later and do kind of like a...
No, you're fine. I was going to say, so can I guess which 2 we're going to talk about here?
Well,
I assume it's Jodie Foster and, oh my God, the redhead. What is her name?
Julianne Moore.
Julianne Moore.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's who we're going to talk about for this.
Sweet.
It's one of those situations where there are some roles, like James Bond. James Bond's been played by, 7 or 8 different people now?
At least.
Batman's been played by 8, and we are going to talk about Batman today too.
All right.
But I thought it'd be kind of fun. Let's talk about some people that have played some roles better, and we figure out why they played the role better. But we have to end on one. As IPTT, we have to agree on one person that played the role better.
Okay.
Because eventually, we might get to have another conversation later about the same character, but different actors.
Okay, let's have it.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
So, we're going to have some criteria. We're going to have to talk about how authentic they were to the source material.
Okay.
Were they a good fit for that character?
No, it's a good point because Hollywood has a really bad habit of sometimes trying to force the square peg into the round hole when it comes to hiring a certain actor. They get an actor in mind. They think, oh, they're just so perfect for the role. And then even with screen tests that can clearly show this particular performer may not be right for the role, they're just like, fuck it. They're a big name. We're paying them lots of money. Let's just go forward. And that's when they wind up with a shit product. I would assume performance, because I mean, authenticity is great. Like if were they authentic to the source material is fine, and were they a good fit for the role is fine. But if their performance still like they could still be a good a prime example. What's his name? Good fit for the role. Not really necessarily an authenticity problem for the source material, but Scorpion King.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, he's a good fit for the role, but, I like The Rock, and I think he can sometimes pull it off. Like, there's certain roles where he does well, but for the Scorpion King, he just didn't bring it. He just didn't bring it at all, and it could have panned out to something much bigger, like Arnie-style big, but, I think Arnie, believe it or not, actually had some humility that The Rock just doesn't seem to have, and when he's on set, he's given direction. Sometimes he's not following along. He's saying, you know what, I'm The Rock. I do what I do.
And you have to have someone that's going to perform the role the way it's supposed to be performed, not how they want it to be performed.
Well,
because, you said, with The Rock, sometimes he just plays himself.
Right.
Like.
And I mean, you do want to bring some of yourself to it, but I think DiCaprio does this really well, where he's bringing himself and he's bringing, his interpretation to a role, but he's also listening to a good director that's telling him when there might need to be something more or different, or try something different to see how it might impact a scene. And that's important. And I don't know, I have yet to see The Rock in a role where I see that kind of dedication to the character. So, like I said, good fit, but not necessarily a great performance all the time.
All right, so right off the bat, we're going to talk about Julianne Moore and Jodie Foster as Clarice Starling.
Let's have it.
So in the books, she was just a FBI agent. Well, I think she was a trainee more than anything, who was supposed to interview Hannibal Lecter and try to get some insight on how he felt about the new up and coming killer.
Before we do each one, I think it's important for us to account for our biases. So
Yeah, okay.
Let's start there. And the easiest way I think for us to account for our bias is to announce which one we saw in the role first, because that can play a major role in whether how you're interpreting. So I will say I definitely saw Jodie Foster first.
Same here.
Okay, so that's our established biases. We definitely saw Jodie Foster in the role first, and I think I saw her in 2 movies first before Julianne Moore was ever in any movies, because I think she was in Hannibal and then the second one, right?
You mean in these ones right here?
No, I guess Jodie Foster was only in the first
Yeah,
one, right?
Jodie Foster was only in Silence of the Lambs.
Right, and then
she moved on to Hannibal.
and then Julianne Moore was in the second one.
Yeah.
And then we had Red Dragon, which is neither.
Yeah, and that's just Will, and it's a whole other thing.
Whole different thing. Okay, cool. So, let's have it.
I personally think when it comes to how authentic that they were to the role, you have to go by how well they were able to portray like the accent that Clarice Starling was supposed to have, and like how she was supposed to be like this tough person and all that good stuff. I feel that Julianne Moore was able to portray the toughness of Clarice Starling, but again, this might also just be the bias, but I do feel that for sure Jodie Foster was the more believable Clarice Starling. She had that like natural kind of sounding accent as opposed to Julianne Moore's accent, which kind of felt a little forced country, if that makes sense. There's sometimes where you hear somebody putting on a country accent and you're like, you're putting on an accent. And when it comes to Clarice Starling, you want something that's going to sound natural. And the way that when Hannibal was talking to her, whenever they were kind of going back and forth in the cell, when you compare any conversation that Hannibal had with her in the second movie, it really seemed like Jodie Foster's conversations with Hannibal seemed a lot more fluid. I don't know if maybe that's a dynamic that her and oh my god, like his name. Anthony Hopkins.
Anthony Hopkins. Yeah.
I don't know if that's a dynamic that they had, because I do know that at least in the first one, I don't know if it was the same for the second. Anthony kind of distanced himself from Jodie Foster, and he was just scary on the set. Kind of he was just being himself, and she was terrified of him. I don't know if it's the same thing for Julianne Moore. So at least in my opinion, she was more authentic, just because there was that naivety, but there was also like the toughness, and then.
So that's what I need to ask you. I've never read the books. So in the books, is she portrayed as, unable to be, a toughness that is beyond intimidation, or is the intimidation and kind of that meekness that she shows, that Jodie shows in the first film, is that character trait appropriate for Starling?
In my opinion, yes. Just because in the books, there's more like it's kind of hard to describe, but the way that you see Jodie Foster on screen, with the way that she was able to play that naivete, but not like be too naive with everything, like fall into what Hannibal's saying, knowing that she wants to listen to what he's saying about all these like killers, or not the killers, but when she's trying to get her insight, she's not falling prey to what he's saying.
And that's just it. I think a naivete might be naive might be the wrong word.
Naivete when it comes to learning about how to be an FBI agent, I can say.
See, she was a brand new agent. Like
Yeah,
she was literally in training, which is just fucking weird in the first place. But that's a whole plot thing. But I would almost call it just intimidation, because she was clearly intimidated by Lecter, and with good reason. Obviously, this is a very intimidating man, both intellectually and murderous rampage psychopathically. But that's how I saw it. I never really saw her as naive per se, even though yes, she's a new agent. She's still kind of going through training, but she has a strong psychology background. So I never saw her going into this brazen or misconstruing what the dynamic was. But I did see a lot of her being intimidated by Lecter. And I didn't know if that was something that was reflected in the character within the book, or if that's something Jodie kind of brought to it because she believed that it really wouldn't matter that, Starling's character is very tough. It's that she realized it doesn't matter how tough you are, you're going to be intimidated by somebody like this.
In my opinion, it felt like the way that you see Jodie Foster on screen is how she was portrayed in the book. At least in my opinion.
Okay.
That's how it was supposed to be. And when you look at Hannibal, and this is kind of where it's hard to determine who is the more believable one, because in the second book, she did have all that growing that she did after Buffalo Bill was killed.
And that's a good
right?
point. And yeah, she's already experienced some, she's already had some experience with Lecter. So, she's going to grow a little bit of a thicker skin and be a little less intimidated by him now. She's past that initial meeting point, and she's kind of survived him already, if you will.
Yeah.
He's had an escape, and he's gotten out of the facility, and she's alive to tell the tale. So, that in itself would definitely put a thicker skin on somebody and make them less intimidated by another person, even if that person's a killer. Especially a person who's supposed to be mentally tough like Starling, because as opposed to allowing an experience like that to, make her, meeker and more reserved or more guarded, it's going to make her tougher and more, it's going to make her put up more walls, but tough walls, as opposed to I don't want to ever see him again because he scares me walls.
And at the end of the day, I'm just going to say this right out the bat. When I was younger, this is just me. This is personal. I was more drawn to Julianne Moore.
Oh, gee, I wonder why.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was just me personally. So, honestly, when it comes to who I like more, it's not Jodie Foster. But when it comes to how authentic I think that she was to the role, I think she was more authentic.
Who is Julianne Moore?
No, Jodie Foster.
Jodie Foster.
I wasn't drawn to Jodie Foster, but
well, on that note, Kraken.
Kraken. So, I mean, when it comes down to it, I think this one's kind of hard. It's going to be a toss-up between the two of them because they're the same character, but they do have different personality traits when it comes to the growth because one was just starting out her career, the other one was moving on. I'm going to give it to Jodie Foster because I believed her more on screen than I did Julianne Moore.
This one's also difficult because we literally are seeing a growth of a character. So if we talk about James Bond or we talk about Batman, it doesn't, unless we're doing, like if we're doing Wolverine, actually, let's start with Wolverine as an example. If we're talking about Wolverine in, any time frame within the X-Men versus somebody trying to play Wolverine as Old Man Logan, those are two very different characters to play. And we kind of see the same thing here versus like James Bond or Batman, where it's like if you're playing Batman at any point in his career, as long as he's not old Batman, or James Bond at any point in his career, he's always really kind of the same guy. The only difference is going to be like Craig playing that, playing the initial movie I think that he was in with Bond, where it's like the beginning of James Bond before he's even got his 00 designation, right? That's going to be the only time there might be some wiggle room to play Bond a little bit differently. Like the very first film, I think somebody asked him, he asked for a martini, and they said, "Do you want it shaken or stirred?" And he said, "I don't give a damn." Because, this is early James Bond, so he gets to play with it a little bit. But outside of that one isolated film, it's still just you're playing the same damn character with the same kind of set of character traits.
That's true.
That's a big departure from this, where we're trying to basically compare two actors playing the same character, but at wildly different times in the character's evolution to where they could play them in completely different ways and still be both totally on the mark. And I think that's what we saw here, to be honest.
So when it comes down to it for you, I mean, because you don't really have a bias either way because you haven't read the books, who do you think had the most believable role there? Because, I mean, we're going to have to tie this in both.
Well, my bias plays in. It's Jodie.
Yeah.
For me, it's Jodie. I love Julianne Moore, and like you said, I had a crush on her too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who am I kidding? I have a crush on her now. But she's an amazing actor, and she's an incredible performer, and I think she did a great job with Hannibal. But the problem is it is too hard for me to shake Jodie in Silence of the Lambs. I mean, hell, the film won Academy Awards, didn't it?
I think it was. I don't know if it won.
I don't know if it won or if it was nominated. I think Hopkins may have been nominated as well.
Sir Anthony Hopkins.
And the way the thing is, his character did not change. Should not have changed much, but he was wildly different between the first and the second one. But that's also because, what was it, 20 years apart?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like, yeah, you fucking brought the poor bastard back, and it's supposed to be what, a couple of years later, and it's clearly he's aged 20 fucking years. He's not the younger, slicked back haired man that he once was. That's the thing I mostly noticed between the two films is it was hard for me to make any kind of juxtaposition between the two Starling characters because I'm watching Anthony Hopkins, who's playing the same fucking guy as the same actor, as wildly different interpretations because in the first one he's a very creepy, psychopathic, almost trying to intimidate, doing those creepy things and really trying to get, become the mind of the psychopath. And in the second one, he is so much more of a likable character. He really is. Like when he kills the police officer in the second one, you're almost rooting for him. Like, yeah, that police officer's a piece of shit. And
he was gonna rat him out.
He's ratting him out. And he's using his position for personal gain, which is not what police officers are supposed to do. This is literally police corruption. Fuck this guy. So you're almost rooting for Lecter in the second one. You're not rooting for Lecter in the first one. You're rooting for Starling. So, him playing the character so wildly different between the two, whether that was his creative direction or the director's creative directions, whatever it might have been, it's really hard to pull the focus back to compare the Starlings when you've got this incredible example of an actor playing the role differently when it's the same guy and the same character. The character did not really shift between those two films.
Well, I think that's the crux of the issue right there, is that in the first film, you can't take your eyes off of Starling because she's like growing. She's really in the action.
Exactly.
In the second one, like I said, I love Julianne Moore. And I think with this one, it's harder because to do the differentiating categories here, they're all kind of wrapped up into one because it all comes down to the fact that in the end, Anthony Hopkins was the star of the second one.
That's a very good point. That's really what it is.
They needed someone to take a step back but also be forward. And in this one, I feel that with Julianne Moore, she took too far of a step back. So whenever I think about the movie in general, I literally just think about Anthony Hopkins, like you're saying.
I 100% agree. That's really the biggest issue with trying to compare is because the first film was about Starling, the second film was about actor. And I mean, that's fine. The first film is called Silence of the Lambs, and she's Hannibal. The lamb, and the second film is called Hannibal. So it kind of makes sense that the focus shifted more to Hannibal, but because of that, we don't really get a fair comparison of Julianne to Jodie because Jodie got to be, the front and center shining star of the first one, whereas in the second one, the point was to shift focus over to Hannibal because the fucking book's called Hannibal, and we're trying to get to know Hannibal more. Yeah. And hell, most of the book is focused on Hannibal, or most of the film is focused on Hannibal. We're following, he's
in Italy doing whatever he's doing.
Yeah, he's in Italy doing his fucking shit, and we're following him. We're not as concerned with Starling's pursuit as we were in the first one with her psychological pursuit.
I think in this one, it was supposed to be a kind of a duality or a dual role whenever Hannibal is doing his own thing, but Clarice is supposed to be doing her own thing. You're supposed to feel the same way about both of the characters because you see her investigation trying to get to Hannibal. You're trying to figure out how she's going to be able to catch him because she's the one that actually contacted the Italian police and asked for information on that. And he's the one that contacted her office to try to get the information so he could basically catch Hannibal.
Right.
You're supposed to feel like entranced in what she's doing. And unfortunately, it just didn't play out well.
No, agreed.
So I mean, I think we both in agreement on this one. Jodie Foster, maybe not Julianne Moore's fault in this one, but Jodie Foster.
Yeah, no, I'm not placing the blame on Julianne's performance. Her performance was fantastic. It's not a blame thing. It's a Jodie was given a lot more to work with, in my opinion. She was given a lot more to work with, and when you're trying to play the role of like show yourself as both intelligent but fresh out of the academy and intimidated, you've got a lot of characterization to work with.
100%.
She had a lot of room to work. Whereas with Julianne, she didn't really have a lot of room to work. It was like, okay, you're Starling, but you've already kind of had your encounter with Lecter. You're a more seasoned agent now. You're chasing him down. So it's all just kind of about the procedural work, and that's what she got to focus on. And she didn't really get to start stepping into being, showing her fear or her reaction to anything until she was back having those moments with Lecter at the very end of the film. Whereas with Jodie, the entire film are her interactions with Lecter. So I think Jodie just had a lot more that she got to work with. Whereas Julianne, it was like, unfortunately, hers is more of a cop drama, whereas the first one was more of a psychological drama. So that's where I would agree. I would give it to Jodie, but simply because Jodie got to work with a much more robust characterization of Starling.
The first category, Clarice Starling, Jodie Foster. Now we're going to move on to someone that we can definitely talk about the authenticity and talk about where they good fit in the performance, and it won't feel like we're trying to battle who's doing what at one time because it's fucking Batman, okay?
All right,
We're going to talk about Michael Keaton and Christian Bale.
Oh, that's a hard one. Okay, who did you see first?
Okay, so obviously, who the fuck do you think I saw first?
Well, I would hope Keaton.
Actually, Kevin Conroy, but I mean,
Who the fuck is Kevin Conroy?
what? He's the voice of Batman. In
From Batman the Animated Series.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. No, I actually saw Keaton before Conroy then.
Oh yeah, so Keaton is who I saw first in this one.
Gotcha. So, and did you see both of Keaton's films before you saw Christian Bale?
Yes, 100%. I saw Keaton, Kilmer, Clooney, and then Bale. So I mean, I saw them all.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
So in this case, when it comes to how authentic they are to the role, unfortunately, because I love Michael Keaton, I really do. I got to give this to Bale.
No, it's
fucking Bale.
I love Keaton, but it's Bale hands down.
100%.
Keaton tried to walk in and just be. He tried to be brooding, but all the time. Even when Keaton was like having his interactions with Vicky Vale, there was still a sense of brood there, even when he was being a little charming.
Yeah.
Whereas Bale understood the assignment, and the assignment is you are brooding. You're a brooding character, but in the public eye, you're supposed to be the millionaire playboy. That's your cover.
Exactly.
And Bale understood that. He understood, like, because he didn't want to do this shit. But Alfred's kind of like, you kind of have to.
Yeah.
Man. You have to put a face on so people don't start suspecting things. So, but no, Keaton was very like, oh, look at me, I'm in a turtleneck and I'm brooding the whole fucking time.
Exactly.
Which was fine. I mean,
turtleneck and I'm brooding.
He was.
It was though. In both movies.
In both movies, he's always on a fucking turtleneck. But I loved Keaton in his role. But yeah, he was, even when he's being charming with Vicky Vale, there's still kind of this sense of like, oh, I'm so dark. Like, he was the original emo. That's what it was. He was fucking being emo in that movie.
Yeah, he was. It was pretty great though. I mean, I think it is, yeah. But we do know that when it comes to the authenticity of the role, you see. I mean, I don't know if it's just because Michael Keaton didn't get the same thing, but when he fights, even it's the same fucking moves. You don't feel like, oh, he's a martial arts master. You can feel he can kick some ass, but that's about it. No, you see Bale go through training, and he actually puts. Like, he's a believable martial artist. He's a believable detective. He's a believable millionaire playboy. He's a believable Batman. Michael Keaton, I love the guy. I really do. I love the Batman movies, but when you put him in the suit, it's like, oh, so now you're Batman. Well, you're still Bruce Wayne though.
Do you remember the Batman thing from Tiny Toon Adventures?
No,
because I still remember this. It's Batman shows up and then he it's cartoon, so he just unzips from the front to take off the Batman suit, and as the Batman suit drops, Batman goes from being like 6 foot tall down to like 5 feet.
No,
because Michael Keaton's so tiny. That's what they're insinuating. But yeah, I mean, hell, I even remember my brother, who's significantly older than me. I remember him talking about Keaton playing that role and just thinking it was the stupidest fucking thing he'd ever heard. And it's not anything against Keaton. It's just up to this point, Mr. Mom, Multiplicity, every film role he played was comedy. He was a comedian. This would have been, in Bale's standard, that would have been like them going to, I'm trying to fucking think of somebody that would just make no goddamn sense. But yeah, I remember, my brother just being dumbfounded, and it made sense because if you think about Christopher Nolan doing Batman, imagine instead of Christian Bale, they had approached, perfect example, Chris Pratt. It's like, no, Chris Pratt makes great sense.
Oh, I get what you mean. As Star-Lord, yeah.
Makes great sense as Star-Lord because Star-Lord's kind of a goofball. But imagine Chris Pratt trying to play Batman. It's like, what are you fucking doing? You don't put Chris Pratt as Batman.
I think that segues right into the next thing is, were they fit for the role?
Role? Michael Keaton wasn't fit for the role. Did he do a great job in spite of it? Absolutely.
Yeah.
He is
iconic.
He is iconic. He is legendary in the role. But Bale was just simply a better fit for the role. Even with the Machinist, he was still kind of a badass. And that was when he weighed 40 pounds.
Yeah, 40 pounds.
Jesus fucking Christ, poor guy. But in every other role, whether you're talking American Psycho or, hell, when he played John fucking Connor, I mean, he knows how to play kind of a badass. and be kind of sexy and, playboy about it.
Yeah.
So he was a great fit.
See, I'm gonna tell you right now, though, when it comes to Batman's and the biggest debate about Batman, I think most people know that I don't think that Christian Bale was the best Batman because his portrayal of Bruce Wayne was just fucking Patrick Bateman. But I digest, okay?
It's all he fucking was. Oh, God.
So when it comes to how well they performed in the role, I think that Michael Keaton did do a good job. Like on screen, he does play Batman very believable, and he's pretty good. And the first and the second one, you can kind of feel like at least his romantic inclinations toward like Vicky Vale and then Selena Kyle. You feel like that portrayal is actually really accurate, and that's really good. But the action is not the best.
Yeah, that's true.
But then when it comes to like Christian Bale, I think that he did a fantastic job with his relationships. He did a good job like when he's fighting the villains. He did a good job in every scene that he was in. And again, I love Michael Keaton. I'm not trying to downplay his performance in any way, shape, or form. I love him as Batman. But Christian Bale wins this one. I'm sorry, hands down.
Well, I will say, when you talk about the fighting, I think the problem is for Bale, they wanted it to be more of a martial arts film.
Yeah, they wanted to show that Batman is
Yeah.
like a master of all of these different.
Exactly. Whereas with Keaton, they were really more focused on the gadgets. I mean, hell, you've even
Yeah.
got that famous line by Nicholson. Where does he get all those wonderful
Where does he get
toys?
those wonderful
Where does he
toys?
get all those wonderful toys? Because that was the focus, and that was always the next cool thing is, what next cool thing is Batman going to have now? And they even did that with Bale, too.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the only thing. It was like, here's the cool toy, and we're going to show that, but Batman still has to rely on the fact that he's a martial artist to make this work.
Not
Whereas-
he's stealing my balloons.
He's stealing my balloons. Why didn't anybody tell me he had one of those things? Fucking cat. See, we need to talk about how great Nicholson was as a Joker.
Yeah, we'll talk about the Joker at some point.
Okay. I thought you were saying we're doing it on this episode. Like,
No.
I'm not prepared. I'm not prepared to discuss Joker.
We're going to talk about that later on. But it's one of those situations where it's like you also have to think about the movies themselves too, because the entire, like, I'm going to say Tim Burton, and then I think it's Schumacher, who did the next ones, like was it the trilogy or something like that? No, who did Forever and then Batman and Robin? It was Joel Schumacher, wasn't it?
Oh, it doesn't fucking matter because those were awful.
Fucking bad movies, okay? But when it comes down to it, like those were all campy movies. This was not supposed to be a campy movie. The Batman or the Dark Knight trilogy was not supposed to be campy.
Obviously, yeah.
But I mean, there's a way to do camp and there's a way to do camp. And Batman campy is not good if you're not doing it in like the early, Adam West camp.
Yeah, if you're not bringing Caesar
Romero
in as your Joker, then you're not doing camp. You're just being a jack. You're just throwing Arnie into a fucking cold suit. That's what you're fucking doing, and it's weird. And we're all gonna fucking make fun of you for it years later. And even Clooney's gonna be like, let's just not even talk about the fact that I was Batman. Let's just pretend like that shit didn't happen.
So now we're gonna move on to another iconic role. And this one, in my opinion, is going to be very easy. It's going to be Robin Williams versus Will Smith as the Genie.
Oh, this isn't even a contest. Why are we even doing this one?
Because it's fun.
It's not fun. It's Robin Williams, and if anybody tries to tell me it's Will Smith, okay. And first of all, yes,
No, this is why we're doing this, because I have had this debate with people, and some people think that Will Smith was better. So we need to go through all of these so people can point these out.
Not even a little bit. Not even slightly. And we can do the same analysis we did with Silence of the Lambs. You've got two very different settings and mediums when it comes to these portrayals. Obviously, Williams is doing a cartoon. There's a lot more that can go into like the animation to give Williams, more to work with. And then you've got Smith doing it as a live action. And to me, it doesn't fucking matter because... And yes, Williams is my bias. I saw Williams first. I was, I think that was another one that came out in like 92, 93, something like that. So, I would have been a child. But even going back now, it still holds up. Williams was a comic genius. He truly was. The man knew how to just riff. Like, you talk to anybody that's ever worked with him, they were like, I don't even know how the fuck he does it.
We did a whole episode about this.
Exactly. We did a whole episode. The man could just fucking riff and come up with some of the funniest shit you've ever heard in your life. Stuff that probably never left the cutting room floor, because it was probably too inappropriate for
Yeah.
whatever project he was doing. It never mattered. Like even his more adult stuff, like that weird fucking 1 hour photo movie that he did.
I like that movie.
Of course you fucking do, you reprobate. But it's Williams. And Smith did okay. Honestly, and I'm not blaming Smith for this. In my opinion, every one of these fucking live action attempts has been a disaster.
Not all of them.
You tell me one, and I'm Beauty and the Beast is the only one I think I might be able to give you.
I was gonna say
Yeah.
Beauty and the Beast is probably one of the better ones. And then there's also like the Peter Pan adaptation. Some of those are really good.
Like which one?
Like Hook.
Yeah, but that's not.
That's also Robin Williams
I
too.
was about to say that's Robin
Yeah,
Williams.
But
that
there's
was
also
the
like
90s.
there was the one in the early 2000s. I think it's called Just Peter Pan, if I'm not mistaken. That one I like that one.
See, I saw that one. It actually isn't that great.
It's not that bad.
It's. I mean, I would actually rank some of the Disney live actions above that one. I don't think it was.
Really?
Yeah, I don't really think it was that great. But
At least The Lion King, in my opinion, was not a bad movie at all. I actually liked The Lion King.
I actually haven't seen The Lion King. I like the live action one, obviously.
I think it's actually very good.
I have heard about that one, but I saw the Little Mermaid. I saw.
I did not see Little Mermaid. I refused.
What's the latest one? Or not the latest one? The one we were just talking about.
Beauty and the Beast?
No, Aladdin. I saw Beauty and the Beast. Of those three, the only one that was even tolerable was Beauty and the Beast. And even then, it was like, okay, I can take this or leave this. This is fine, I guess. It wasn't like the original Beauty and the Beast. It didn't blow my skirt up.
Here's the problem, though, is that when it comes down to Aladdin, in my opinion, in the two movies, you need to rely on the genie. He's the storyteller for most of the movie. He's also the person that's moving the entire thing along. He's the one that's supposed to be that comic relief. And they were trying to rely on someone, and you already said this. You're trying to rely on someone that cannot match wits with a comedic genius like Robin Williams.
Yep.
Don't get me wrong. Will Smith, when he's not smacking people around, is a very funny fucking person. Like, he's very, very funny. And when you look at like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and the stuff that he was doing there, it's like, okay, well, you can kind of see why they wanted to lean towards him. But when you see him on screen as the genie, I don't know if you caught this too. It felt like he was trying to be too cool for the role.
Oh my God, yes, that's exactly what it was.
And
He
so
was-
he's not. We're gonna move right into like he was not a good fit for this.
Oh, yeah.
Both of them, by the way, are not great for the source material, so it doesn't really matter about that one.
Oh well,
'Cause
yeah,
the genie was a completely different fucking character, so it doesn't really matter about that.
yeah.
So when it comes to were they a good fit for the role, one was not.
When it comes to any Disney project, most of them are based off of like Han or
So you're about to say Hans Gruber.
not Han.
Like,
I was about to say
why?
Hans Christian Andersen, but that's not it. They're based off Grimm fairy tales.
Yeah.
So no Disney film is going to be conducive with the source material. So we can throw that one out the fucking window when it comes to this. Especially for something like Aladdin, which
Like
comes
Arabian Nights.
to, 1,000 Arabian Nights. Like it's not going to be conducive. The genie was probably more of an evil character, to be perfectly honest.
Not
right?
evil, but like not
Mischievous.
Yeah, just not what he was in
Yeah,
here. He
not-
was not an overly friendly guy. He's
Exactly.
not a friend like you. You know.
Right. It's
Ah, you
because
said it there.
I see what you did there. You're right, because it's going to be probably more of the characterization of the ancient tales of jinn, which
Yeah.
makes sense, and that's there are bad jinn, there are good jinn, but generally speaking, jinn are out for themselves. They're not there. They're not granting wishes because they're so excited to see you happy. They're granting wishes because it is what they are. They have been made to do.
Yeah.
So, and you're right. The characterization of the genie as being this, whether we're talking about the Smith or Williams' interpretation, either way, they're both trying to be very helpful stewards to the Aladdin character. And you're right, that's just not reality when it comes to the source material.
It felt like to me with the first, like when you talk about like Robin Williams' Genie versus Will Smith's Genie, Robin Williams' Genie was like, hey, I might be able to free you, right? And that'll be okay. So he was hopeful, but he wasn't hopeful the entire time. You know that? In Fresh Prince's thing, like with Fresh Prince, Will Smith's Genie, it felt like you already knew that he got free because he was in the beginning of the movie. So it's like you're not really trying to make me believe that he might not get free versus like the original one where it's like you're trying to see, is he actually going to free the genie? Is he really going to use that last wish on him? And it was like it's already set in stone. That's all it was really pushing for, was like, oh, this is a genie heavy movie versus a Aladdin movie.
But then just generally speaking from the film, one of the things I hated the most, and I'm so glad we get to talk about
Fucking
this.
song.
No. The thing I really truly disliked about the live action remake is my contention of who the Disney princess in Aladdin is. Of course, most people would say Jasmine.
Jafar.
It's
Don't die now.
sorry, I threw up in my mouth a bit. Oh God.
Prince Abubu.
Prince Abubu. No, so the true Disney princess, in my opinion, for Aladdin is Aladdin.
Yeah.
You know, he's the rags to riches story. He's the one that has to go on an epic tale of self-discovery.
He talks to animals.
He talks to animals. You know, he's literally, and yeah, Jasmine kind of shares that. But in my opinion, Jasmine is a princess in Aladdin. Aladdin is the Disney princess. He's the one who goes through that self-discovery and then has to trying to find a way to better himself, not realizing that he always had it in him all along. He goes on that journey. That's him. He's the fucking Disney princess in the story.
What the fuck are you putting in Aladdin? What did he have in him the entire time?
The goodness, the wonder, the magic that he always had that in him the entire time, as opposed to he needs to be a prince in order to woo the princess. No, he just needed himself because he was always good enough. That's always supposed to be the story. Like, same with Ariel. Ariel didn't need to, go to dry land to woo the prince. She was always good enough.
She kind of needed human legs.
Yeah, I suppose the human legs.
She needed some bits, and she was missing them at first. Okay,
she needed some bits. But that's the Disney princess. That's part of the Disney princess characterization, the archetype. There's certain archetypes, and he fits them more than Princess Jasmine.
Exactly.
So in the live action, they were trying so hard to give Jasmine a bigger role, and it's like, I understand why you're doing it, but the story's not about Jasmine. It's about Aladdin. The fucking movie's called Aladdin. That would be like taking the story of a Sleeping Beauty, and making it more about the prince. It's not about him. It's about her. Or Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. If you start adding more of the prince in, like, who gives a fuck about that guy? It's about Snow White. Same thing with Aladdin. Princess Jasmine's a great character, and I love her sass, but she's secondary. She is a secondary character who is only she is part of his love story, and she is part of him on his journey of discovery. It's not about her. So when they try to integrate more of her into the story, it's like, it's clear there's kind of a problem with the direction you've taken this, because you're pulling the focus away from Aladdin. In that movie, I remember Will Smith and Jasmine. I don't remember anything about Aladdin. I don't remember him at all.
Yeah, I don't even remember the songs aside from that god-awful. I literally have only seen this movie one time because it was that bad. But I like how we use this entire, hey, is Will Smith better than Robin Williams, and you just shit on the entire movie instead of just the one. I fucking love it.
And that's the problem.
I love it.
That's why it's such a bad comparison, because it's like, not only was Williams a better Genie, but overall, the original was a better film.
Yeah, that's true.
It was more fun. It was more genuine. It was more, you talked about being genuine to the role. It's like you said, Will was trying to be fucking cool. It's like, Will, this is a goofy character.
He's supposed to just try to be a friend to Aladdin.
Right.
And this is like, no, you're trying to be like the hip hop guy, the cool guy, the star of the show.
Right.
When it's, your name is not on the fucking marquee. Okay?
Yeah, exactly.
This is like whenever you have Blink 182, like, not headlining, but they're like, what is it? What do they call that? Whenever you're opening.
Openers, yeah.
You have Blink 182 opening up for like Megadeth. It's like, what the fuck are you doing here?
Yeah. But that's my that's my huge problem with putting Will Smith in the role. I think there are plenty of other actors who could have done a better job of that. Who, hell, we even talked about we've talked about Chris Tucker before. I know Chris Tucker's a little far removed,
yeah,
and probably was not really the best choice. But can you imagine a fun, goofy, kind of silly Chris Tucker? That would have made more sense to me as somebody trying to play the Genie, because he could have. Because again, we do know that Williams definitely was a overshadowing presence in the film. But his overshadowing presence was being super goofy, and you didn't forget about Aladdin. He complimented Aladdin. They were goofy pals together, palling around. Aladdin kind of even, kind of almost brought Genie down a little bit, when Genie was getting a little too silly and goofy, right? Whereas in this one, it's It's like you said. He was playing Hitch, is what he was. That's
He
what he was
was,
fucking doing.
yeah,
he was
he was
playing,
playing
Hitch.
Hitch.
And he was trying to be Hitch, and it was fucking weird and awkward, and I hated watching it. I did.
You know who would have been a good Aladdin, or not a good Aladdin, a good Genie? I think
Who?
John Mulaney. I think he could have played a good.
Like John
Genie.
Mulaney on coke.
Yeah,
Okay, all right, well, fair.
I mean, you gotta find a way to get up to Robin Williams' level, and
I mean, that's how Robin Williams got to Robin
I
Williams.
was like,
in a lot of cases.
it's like you've got to use those performance-enhancing drugs, my guy.
You want to be the best. You better be prepared to be what takes the best.
Yeah. You want to make it to the Olympics, son?
You better learn how to get past a piss test, son. This is the fucking big leagues. You think Williams is in the bathroom doing lines of Diet Coke? I don't fucking think
No,
so,
bitch.
pal.
No. He loves the way that shit smells.
Smell of this. Does it smell like cocaine?
See, the funny thing about this is that Sean and I at one point were waiting in line to get some Mexican food at some point, and this guy was standing behind us, and he's like, "Do you guys like cocaine?" And we turned around, we're like, "No." And then Sean just asked him, "Do you?" And he's like, "Well, I like the way it smells." And that's all the fuck he said. Like, that was the entire conversation. It was like, what the fuck is this?
Still to this day, one of the best lines I've ever heard.
It's like, what the fuck is
Just
this?
a cold delivery of that fucking line. Fantastic. Like, I like the way it smells.
It's like, okay then. I'm just gonna go get my burrito. So this is a Denny's. All right, so we have our winners. We have Jodie Foster. And then we have, the Fresh Prince as the winner.
Well, AJ, thank you for...
He didn't. I knew he wasn't listening to me. That's why I did that shit.
Do what?
I said the Fresh Prince is the winner.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. I wasn't listening. I was scratching my ear. You son of a bitch. So obviously, Fresh Prince is not the winner. That's just it. It's like, I can't believe we're getting back into this. Pursuit of Happiness, amazing
He's
flick.
so pissed.
He did great in the original Bad Boys movies. Of course, they keep coming out with more, and it's like, dude, you're almost 60. Stop it. So it's like it's not like he's a bad actor or that he's not that he's a bad performer. He knows how to put in the work and do a good job. It's like he said. The reason this just fell on its face is he was not the right fit for the role.
No.
They needed somebody that could complement the Aladdin character while also and honestly, it didn't necessarily even need to be goofy, because the problem is though that Aladdin can't be the goofy character, and that's the biggest issue. Because I'm thinking about literally the fact that he seemed like he was Hitch in this film, right?
Yeah.
Well, the reason Hitch worked is because the character that Hitch is helping is the goofy comic relief.
Yeah.
He's a goofball, he's awkward, he's funny to watch. Kevin James was fantastic as the person that Hitch needed. But that's not this film. This film is this is a street rat with the heart of gold. This is a street rat with a heart of gold. He's he's already a wonderful, honorable, very integrityful young man who is our hero. So you're trying to play. You're a Hitch trying to play that to a guy that doesn't need a hitch. He wasn't feeling like he couldn't get the girl. He could have gotten the girl. He just wasn't a prince. That's the whole point of the fucking...
He wasn't a prince like me.
Exactly.
So yeah, we're gonna wrap this up, guys, because this is supposed to be a fun episode. If you guys don't like it, then we won't do it again. But I kind of like this one. It was a little fun little debate on who did it better.
I'm glad you had fun. My fucking watch is telling me that my heart rate is going down. My watch is
Because you're drinking like 16 Diet Cokes, you motherfucker.
Well, you big leagues, remember? You got to get your fucking head in the game.
Big League Chew?
We do have some if you want some.
I don't fucking want no Big League Chew.
It's good. For our younger members of the audience, Big League Chew was a chewing gum that was quite popular in the early 90s. However, they had to stop selling it a lot because it's supposed to emulate the idea of chewing tobacco. So, much like the candy cigarettes, it has gone to the wayside.
Sometimes you need to take the edge off, though.
Reminds me of that scene from Community when fucking
Troy.
Troy is like, I picked the wrong day to quit. It's candy cigarettes. He offers Britta one, and she's like, sure. And she just eats his. Oh my God. Troy and Abed in the morning. Love it.
Nice.
Well, AJ, thank you for taking us on this roller coaster of
Emotions.
Of a what?
Of emotions?
Yes.
Well, we
a roller
started
coaster
super
of-
serious, and then we went down to like silly. So I like that one.
Well, we started silly. I think we went up to super serious, and then we came back down to silly. So it really was a roller coaster of emotion, like a ride of some kind of like a coaster. Well, our music is made by Augusto Denise, logo by Design World, mixing and editing by IPTT Studios, and social media by the future Mrs. AJ, but current Mrs. Collegiate Scholar.
And we want to hear from you in your own slice of toast. Tell us about the films you think we and others should see, actors to showcase, or topics to discuss. You can reach us on Instagram or TikTok at IPTT_podcast. Email us directly at IPTTpodcast@gmail.com or interact with us directly through the Spotify app.
And if you ever find yourself trying to compare which person played the genie from Aladdin better, you don't need any fucking toast. It was Robin Williams, and this isn't even a conversation.
I mean, you might need more toast, but just rub me the right way, honey, and you can get that. Because they're genies in a bottle.
Ah, you Christina Aguilera'd it. Also a better genie than Will Smith. Anyway, thanks for listening.
He stole my balloons! Why didn't somebody tell me that he had one of those things?